Hi everybody, welcome back. I'm Jade Fish, and whether you're here right now or drifting in slowly in the VOD, I'm really glad you're here. It's been a while, but we're back in our little corner of the ocean again, soft breathing, quiet thoughts, and just floating together for a while. It feels nice today. Before we go back into the story, I should probably explain where I disappeared to for the last 2 weeks. I didn't stream at all. The first week was because of a family thing. Nothing bad or dramatic, nothing big either. It's just but it's still too personal for me to feel comfortable sharing on stream. So let's just leave it at family thing and move on. As for the second week, not as important as my family thing, but it was a friend's birthday. As we get older, it gets harder and harder to see all my friends, especially since we go to different unis. Some of us are up north, some of us are down south, a few of us are around the area where I'm at right now, but it's still really hard to get together, meet up, and do things. We text constantly, but it's not the same. And also, I'm a bit of a lurker on the chat, so I don't really talk much. So when we have a birthday or something, we all try to do something for it. We all meet up, we all get together if we can. If someone's birthday is in the middle of exam season, we all meet up and do something over the break. So even though it's not as important as a family thing, I wanted to prioritize spending time with them. And I enjoy it, and it felt like a really nice break from everything, really. And I really miss them. I wish we could spend more time together, but life just doesn't go as planned. So that's where I've been. Just drifting around offline for a while. Oh, another small update. I think I finally figured out how I want to do the study with me streams that I want to do for while I study for the MCAT. Or at least I think I have a beginning of an idea. I'm thinking about making multiple or one really big slide, maybe in Google Slides, PowerPoint, or Canva, based on my notes and the textbooks I've been using. And then I basically study and explain the concept out loud, like a little ocean lecture hall. So anyone sitting for the MCAT can also come in and listen to this too, and I'll have a recorded version of all my notes. I still need to figure out the details, though I still need to actually make the slides. I actually finished reading all my textbooks because I want to at least have a vague idea of what I'm talking about, so I can at least understand that before I start turning everything into a giant teaching slide. And I'm also trying really hard not to get any copyright strikes or plagiarize, or get accused of plagiarism or stuff like that, because I really want to be careful about that. So yeah, gotta be really careful about the format I'm using and what information I put on it and how do I show it without getting attacked by legal things, because that's really scary for some, and I've never had to deal with anything legal before, Okay. But back to the stream. Today, we'll be returning to Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen. Still using my physical copy of the book. No screen sharing. Just page turning and quiet reading again. Last time we read chapters 16, 17, and 18 and stopping right before chapter 19. So today, we'll be starting from chapter 19. Again, I don't really have a strict reading goal. We'll just keep talking. I'll just read for like an hour or until I get tired or until my voice decides to die on me. So no pressure at all. You can stay for the whole stream or just in and out wherever you want. At this point, usually I'm talking about what happened in the last few chapters, giving my thoughts, but it's been 2 weeks. Even though I remember vaguely what happened, I don't remember anything specific. So let's skip that for this week. I'll come back to my daily commentary next week. Also, about my study with me streams, do you think anyone would like both, like explaining concepts, teaching streams, or should I just have just put on lo-fi and just study with the stream being on? I feel like, even though I really like the teaching stream, I think people would like this, like the silent stream better. But very indecisive. Anyway, once I start reading, I'll be mostly focusing on the text, but I might pause sometimes to react or check chat or whatever. But overall, this is a calm stream, so feel free to relax, study, draw, or just float around here with me for a bit. Alright. Let's drift back into the story. This is Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen, starting at chapter 19. The next day opened a new scene at Longbourn. Mr. Collins made his declaration in form, having resolved to do it without loss of time, as his leave of absence extended only to the following Saturday, and having no feelings of diffidence to make it distressing to himself even at the moment, he set about it in a very orderly manner. With all the observances which he supposed a regular part of the business. On finding Miss Bennet, Elizabeth, and one of the younger girls together soon after breakfast, he addressed the mother in these words: "May I hope, Madame, for your interest with your fair daughter Elizabeth, when I solicit for the honor of a private audience with her in the course of this morning?" Before Elizabeth had time to do anything but blush in surprise, Miss Bennet instantly answered, "Oh dear, yes, certainly. I am sure Lizzie will be very happy. I am sure she can have no objection. Come, Kitty, I want you upstairs." And gathering her work together, she hastened away. But Elizabeth called out, "Dear ma'am, do not go. I beg you will not go. Mr. Collins must excuse me. He can have nothing to say with me that anybody need not hear. I am going away myself." "No, nonsense. I dare say you'll stay where you are." And upon Elizabeth seemingly really, with vexed and embarrassed look, about to escape, she added, "Lizzie, I insist upon your staying and hearing Mr. Collins." Elizabeth would not oppose such an injunction, and a moment of consideration making her also sensible that it would be wisest to get it over as soon and as quietly as possible. She sat down again and tried to conceal by incessant employment the feelings which were divided between distress and diversion. Miss Bennet and Kitty walked off, and as soon as they were gone, Mr. Collins began. "Believe me, my dear Elizabeth, that your modesty so far from doing you any disservice rather adds to your other perfections. You would have been less amicable in your eyes had there been had there not been this little unwillingness. But allow me to assure you that I have your respected mother's permission for this address. You can hardly doubt the purpose of my discourse. However, your natural delicacy may lead you to dissemble. My intentions have been too marked to be mistaken. Almost as soon as I entered the house, I singled you out as the companion of my future life. But before I am run away with my feelings on this subject, perhaps it will be advisable for me to state my reasons for marrying, and moreover for coming into Hertfordshire with the design of selecting a wife, as I certainly did. The idea of Mr. Cullen's, with all his solemn composure, being run away with it by his feelings made Elizabeth so near laughing that she could not use the short pause he allowed in any attempt to stop him further. And he continued, "My reasons for marrying are, first, that I think it is right for every clergyman in these circumstances, like myself, to set the example of matrimony in his parish. Secondly, that I am convinced it will add greatly to my happiness. And thirdly, which perhaps I ought to have mentioned earlier, that it is the particular advice and recommendation of the very noble lady whom I have the honor of calling patroness. Twice has she condescended to give me her opinion, unasked too, on this subject, and it was but the very Saturday night before I left Hunsford, between our pools at Quadrille, while Miss Jenkins was arranging Miss Longdebor's footstool, that she said, "Mr. Collins, you must marry. A clergyman like you must marry. 'Cause a gentlewoman for my sake, and for your own, let her be an active, useful person, not brought up high, but also make a small income go a good way. This is my advice. Find such a woman as soon as you can, bring her to Hunsworth, and I will visit her. Allow me, by the way, to observe, my fair cousin, that I do not reckon the notice and kindness of Lady Catherine de Bourgh among the least of the advantages in my power to offer. You will find her manners beyond anything I can describe, and your wit and vivacity, I think, must be acceptable to her, especially when tempered with the silence and respect which her rank will inevitably excite. Thus much of my general intentions in favor of matrimony. It remains to be told why my views were directed to Longbourn instead of my own neighborhood, where I assure you there are many amiable young women. But the fact is that being as I am to inherit this estate after the death of your honorable father, who, however, may live many years longer, I could not satisfy myself without resolving to choose a wife among his daughters, that the loss to them might be as little as possible. When the melancholy event takes place, which, however, I have already said may not for several years, this has been my motive, my fair cousin, and I flatter myself it will not sink me in your esteem. And now nothing remains of me but to assure you that in the most animated language of the violence of my affection to fortune I am perfectly indifferent, and shall make no demands of that nature of your father. I am well aware that it could not be complied with, and that £1,000 in the 4%, which will not be yours till after your mother's decease, is all that you may ever be entitled to. On that head, however, therefore, I shall be uniformly silent, and you may assure yourself that no ungenerous reproach shall ever pass my lips when we are married." It was absolutely necessary to interrupt him now. "You are too hasty, sir," she cried. "You forget that I have made no answer. Let me do it without further loss of time. Accept my thanks for the compliment you are paying me. I am very sensible of the honor of your proposal, but it is impossible for me to do otherwise than decline them." "I am not now to learn," replied Mr. Collins with a formal wave of the hand, that it is usual for young ladies to reject the advances of the man whom they secretly mean to accept when he first applies for their favor, and that sometimes the refusal is repeated a second time or even a third time. Therefore, I am by no means discouraged by what you have said. I shall hope that you lead to the altar ere long. Upon my word, sir, cried Elizabeth, your hope is rather an extraordinary one after my declaration. I do assure you that I am not one of those ladies, if such young ladies there are, who are so daring as to reject their happiness on the chance of being asked a second time. I am perfectly serious in my refusal. You could not make me happy, and I am convinced that I am the last woman in the earth who would make you so. Nay, were your friend Lady Catherine to know me, I am persuaded she will find me every respect ill qualified for the situation. Were it certain that Lady Catherine would think so, said Mr. Collins very gravely, but I cannot imagine that her ladyship will at all disapprove of you. And you may be certain that when I have the honor of seeing her again, I shall speak in the highest of terms your modesty, economy, and other amiable qualifications. Indeed, Mr. Collins, all the praise of me will be unnecessary. You must give me leave to judge for myself, and pay me the compliment of believing what I say. I wish you very happy and very rich, and by refusing your hand, do all in my power to prevent you from being otherwise. In making me the offer, you must have satisfied the delicacy of your feelings and with regards to my family, and may take possession of Longbourn estate whenever it falls, without any self-reproach. This matter may be considered, therefore, as finally settled. And raising as she spoke, she would have quitted the room had not Mr. Collins thus addressed her. When I do myself the honor of speaking to you next on this subject, I shall hope to receive a more favorable answer than you have now given me. Though I am far from accusing you of cruelty at the present, because I know it is to be established custom of your sex to reject a man on the first application, and perhaps you even now said as much to encourage my suit as would be consistent with the true delicacy of the female character. Really, Mr. Collins, cried Elizabeth with some warmth, you puzzle me exceedingly. If I were to have hitherto say and appeared to you in the form of encouragement, I know not how to express my refusal in such a way as convince you it is being one. You must give me leave to flatter myself, my dear cousin, that your refusal of my address are merely words of course. My reasons for believing it are thus: it does not appear to me that my hand is unworthy of your acceptance, or that the establishment I can offer would be any other than highly desirable. My situation in life, my connections with the family of De Boer, and my relationship with your own are circumstances highly in its favor. And you should take it into further consideration that in spite of your manifold attractions, it is by no means certain that another offer of your marriage may ever be made to you. Your portion is unhappily so small that it will in all likelihood undo the effects of your loveliness and amiable qualifications, and I must therefore conclude that you are not serious in your rejection of me. I shall choose to attribute it to your wish of increasing my love by suspense, according to the usual practices of elegant females. I do assure you, sir, that I have no pretensions whatever to that kind of elegance which consists in tormenting a respectable man. I would rather be paid the compliment of being believed sincere. I thank you again and again for the honor you have done me in your proposal, but to accept them is absolutely impossible. My feelings in every respect forbid it. Can I speak plainer? Do not consider me now an elegant female intending to plague you, but as a rational creature speaking the truth from her heart. Are you so uniformly charming? He cried with an air of awkward gallantry, and I am persuaded that when sanctioned by the express authority of both your excellent parents, my proposal will not fail of being acceptable. With such perseverance and willful self-deception, Elizabeth would make no reply, and immediately and in silence withdrew, determined, if he persisted in considering her repeated refusal as flattering encouragements, to apply to her father, whose negative might be uttered in such a manner as must be decisive, and whose behavior at least would not be mistaken for the affectations and coquetry of an elegant female. So, what do you all think? Personally, I think that, Collins really needs to know that no means no. And while I get it, Elizabeth's situation does point to the fact that her dowry isn't that much. And all the things he mentioned is, while not nice, logically it's fair. Back at that time, Elizabeth really didn't have much. But still, if a girl says no, no means no. If it's not an explicit yes, it's a no. And I can't believe the mom just was like, you know what? This guy who I know wants to go after my daughter, and my daughter who is like telling me that she doesn't want me to leave, for her sake, I'll leave. Like, girl, I know you're trying to do your best, but your best ain't that best. I do love how Elizabeth went after him. Like, she didn't let him steamroll her. She kept talking. I think she knows that her mom will be furious when she finds out. But, well, what can you do? I can't wait to see what goes next. So, let's move on with the story. Chapter 20. Mr. Collins was not left long in silence contemplation of his successful love. When Miss Bennet, having dwelled about it in the vestibule to watch for the end of the conference, no sooner saw Elizabeth open the doors and with quick step passed her towards the staircase than she entered the breakfast room and congratulated both him and herself in warm terms on the happy prospects of their nearer connection. Mr. Collins received and returned those felicitations with equal pleasure, and then proceeded to relate the particulars of their interview, with the result of which he trusted he had every reason to be satisfied, since the refusal which his cousins had set for giving him would naturally flow from her bashful modesty and genuine delicacy of her character. This information, however, startled Miss Bennet. She would have been glad to be equally satisfied that her daughter had meant to encourage him by protesting against his proposal, but she dared not believe it, and could not help saying so. But depend upon it, Mr. Collins, she added, that Lizzie shall be brought to reason. I will speak to her about it myself directly. She is a very headstrong, foolish girl, and does not know her own interest. I will make her know it. Pardon me for interrupting you, ma'am, cried Mr. Collins, but if she is really headstrong and foolish, I know not whether she would altogether be a desirable wife to a man in my situation, who naturally looks for happiness in that married state. If therefore she actually persists on rejecting my suit, perhaps it were better not force her into accepting me, because if liable to such defects of temper, she could not contribute much to my felicity. Sir, you quite misunderstand me, said Miss Bennet, alarmed. Lizzie is only headstrong in such matters as these. In everything else, she is a good-natured She is as good-natured a girl as ever lived. I'll go directly to Mr. Bennet, and we shall soon settle it with her, I am sure." She would not give him time to reply, but hurrying instantly to her husband, called out as she entered the library, "Oh, Mr. Bennet, you are wanted immediately. We are all in an uproar. You must come and make Lizzie marry Mr. Collins, for she vows she will not have him, and if you do not make haste, he will change his mind and not have her." Mr. Bennet raised his eyes from his book as she entered, and fixed them on her face with a calm unconcern which was not in the least altered by her communications. "I have not the pleasure of understanding you," said he, when she finished her speech. "Of what are you talking about?" "Of Mr. Collins and Lizzie. Lizzie declares that she will not have Mr. Collins, and Mr. Collins begins to say that he will not have Lizzie. And what am I to do on the occasion? It seems a hopeless business." "Speak to Lizzie about it yourself. Tell her that you insist upon her marrying him. Let her be called down, and she shall hear my opinion." Miss Bennet rang the bell, and Miss Elizabeth was summoned to the library. "Come here, child," cried her father as she appeared. "I have sent for you an affair of importance. I understand that Mr. Collins has made you an offer of marriage. Is it true?" Elizabeth replied that it was. "Very well. And this offer of marriage have you refused?" "I have, sir." "Very well. We come to the point. Your mother insists upon you accepting it. Is it not so, Miss Bennet?" "Yes, and I will never see her again. Or I will never see her again. An unhappy alternative is before you, Elizabeth. From this day you must be a stranger to one of your parents. Your mother will never see you again if you do not marry Mr. Collins, and I will never see you again if you do." Elizabeth could not but smile at such a conclusion of such a beginning. But Miss Bennet, who had persuaded herself that her husband regarded the affair as she wanted, was excessively disappointed. "What do you mean, Mr. Bennet, by talking in this way? You promised me to insist upon her marrying him." "My dear," replied her husband, "I have two small favors to request. First, that you shall allow me the free use of my understanding on the present occasion, and secondly, of my room. I shall be glad to have the library to myself as soon as possible." Not yet, however, in spite of her disappointment in her husband, did Miss Bennet give up the point. She talked to Elizabeth again and again, coaxed and threatened her in turn. She endeavored to secure Jane in her interest, but Jane, with all her possible mildness, declined interfering, and Elizabeth sometimes with real earnestness and sometimes with playful gallantry replied to her attacks. Though her manner varied, however her determination never did. Mr. Collins, meanwhile, was mentally insulted on what had passed. He thought him too well of himself to comprehend on what motivated his cousins to refuse him, and though his pride was hurt, he suffered no other way. He regarded her was quite imaginary, impossible, and the possibility of her deserving her mother's reproach prevented his feelings any regret. While the family were in this confusion, Charlotte Lucas came to spend the day with them. She was met in vestibule by Lydia, who, flying to her, cried in a half-whisper, "I am glad you came, for there is such fun here. What do you think happened this morning? Mr. Collins had made an offer to Lizzie, and she will not have him." Charlotte had hardly the time to answer before they were joined by Kitty, who came to tell the same news, and no sooner had they entered the breakfast room, where Miss Bennet was alone, than she likewise began on the subject, calling on Miss Lucas for her compassion and entering her to persuade her friend Lizzie to comply with the wishes of all her family. "Pray do, my dear Miss Lucas," he added in a melancholy tone. "No one is on my side. Nobody takes part with me. I am cruelly used. Nobody feels for my poor nerves." Charlotte reply was spared by the entrance of Jane and Elizabeth. "Aye, there she comes," continued Miss Bennet, looking as unconcerned as may be, and caring no more for us than any if we were at York, provided she can have her own way. "But I tell you what, Miss Lizzie, if you take it into your head to go on refusing every offer of marriage in this way, you will never get a husband at all. And I am sure I do not know who is maintaining you when your father is dead. I shall not be able to keep you, and so I warn you, and have done with you from this very day. I told you in the library, you know, that I should never speak to you again, and you'll find me as good as my word. I have no pleasure in talking to undutiful children. Not that I have much pleasure indeed in talking to anybody. People who suffer as I do from nervous complaints can have no great inclination for talking. Nobody can tell what I suffer. But it is always so. Those who do not complain are never pitied." Her daughters listened in silence to this effusion, sensible that any attempt to reason with or soothe her would only increase the irritation. She talked on, therefore, without interruption from any of them till they were joined by Mr. Collins, who entered with an air of more sedated than usual, and on perceiving whom, she said to the girls, "Now I do insist upon it, that you of all hold your tongues, and let Mr. Collins and me have a little conversation together." Elizabeth passed quietly out of the room. Jane and Kitty followed, but Lydia stood her ground, determined to hear all she could, and Charlotte, detained first by the civilities of Mr. Collins, whose inquiry about herself and all her family were very minute, and then by a little curiosity, satisfied herself with walking to the window and pretending not to hear. In a doleful voice, Miss Bennet thus began the production conversation. "Oh, Mr. Collins." "My dear madame," he replied, "let us be for ever silent on this point. Or be it for me," he presently continued, in a voice that marked his displeasure, "to resent the behavior of your daughter. Resignation to inevitable evils is the duty of all of us. The particular duties of a young man has been so fortunate as I have been in early preferments, and I trust I am resigned. Perhaps not the less so from feeling a doubt in my positive happiness had my fair cousin honored me with her hand, for I have observed that resignation is never so perfect as when the blessing denied being to lose somewhat of its value in our estimation. You will not, I hope, consider me as shewing any disrespect to your family, my dear madam, by thus withdrawing my pretensions to your daughter's favor, without having paid yourself and Mr. Bennet the compliment of requesting you to interpose your authority in my behalf. My conduct may, I fear, be objectionable in having accepted my dismission from your daughter's lips instead of your own. But we are liable to error. I have certainly meant well through the whole affair. My objection has been to secure an amiable companion for myself, and with due consideration for the advantages of all my family. And if my manner has been at all reprehensible, I hereby beg leave to apologize. And that was chapter 20. I really don't like how the mom was like, you will marry him or I don't know you anymore. Like, Elizabeth does not want to marry this person. It's fine. Even if she can't, and by telling her, if you don't marry this man, no one else will ever marry you, it's like, It's like she doesn't see the worth in her own daughters. I understand the situation. I understand that with her dad passing on, no one will support her, no one will be able to take care of her, and that her mom worries that no one will be able to take care of her daughters, and that's why she's been pushing so hard for them to get married. But at the same time, it probably hurts to hear her mom tell her, if you don't marry this person, you're nothing to me. It probably hurts to hear that this person will be the only person to ever want to marry you. And there's really no winning in this situation. Let's see. I think I can power through to the end of volume 1 day. I guess I'll pause in my commentary for now until something interesting happens. I want to get to the end of volume 1 by the end of this stream. That's my goal. I don't know if I'll reach it, but that is my goal. Chapter 21. The discussion of Mr. Cullen's offer was now nearly at an end, and Elizabeth had only to suffer the uncomfortable feeling necessary be attending it, and occasionally from some perverse allusions of her mother. For the gentleman himself, his feelings were chiefly expressed not by embarrassment or dejection, or by trying to avoid her, but by stiffness of manner or resentful silence. He scarcely ever spoke to her, and an assiduous attention which he had been so sensible of himself were transferred for the rest of the day to Miss Lucas, whose civility in listening to him was a sensible relief to them all, especially to her friend. The morrow produced no abatement of Miss Bennet's ill humor, or ill health. Mr. Collins was also in the same state of angry pride. Elizabeth had hoped that his resentment might shorten his visit, but his plans did not appear in the least affected by it. He was always to have gone on Saturday, and to Saturday he still meant to stay. After breakfast, the girls walked to Marytown to inquire if Mr. Wickhams were returned, and to lament over his absence from the Netherfield ball. He joined them on their entering the town, and attended them to their aunts. For his regret and vexation, and the concern of everybody was well talked over. To Elizabeth, however, he voluntarily acknowledged that the necessity of his absence had been self-imposed. I found, said he, as the time drew near, that I had better not meet Mr. Darcy. That to be in the same room, the same party with him for so many hours together, might be more than I could bear, and that scenes might arise unpleasant to more than myself. She highly approved of his forbearance, and they had leisure for a full discussion of it, and for all the commendations which they civilly bestowed on each other, as Wickens and another officer walked back with them to Longbourn, and during the walk he particularly attended to her. Its accompaniment was a double advantage. She felt all the compliments it offered to herself, and it was most acceptable as an occasion of introducing him to her father and mother. As soon as they returned, a letter was delivered to Miss Bennet. It came from Netherfield. It was opened immediately. The envelope contained a sheet of elegant little hot-pressed paper, well covered with a lady's fair, flowing hand. Elizabeth saw her sister's countenance change as she read it, and saw her dwelling intensely on the particular message. Jane recollected herself soon, and putting the letter away, tried to join with her usual cheerfulness in the general conversation. But Elizabeth felt an anxiety on the subject which drew her off attention even from Wickham's. And no sooner had he and his companions taken leave than a glance from Jane invited her followed her upstairs, where they had gained their own room. Jane told Jane, taking out the letter, said, "This is from Charlotte Bingley. What it contains has surprised me a great deal. The whole party has left Netherfield by this time they're on their way to town, without any intention of coming back. You shall hear what she says." She then read the first line aloud, which comprised the information of their having just resolved to follow their brother to town directly, and of their meaning to dine the day in Grosvenor Street, where Mr. Hertz had a house. The next was in these words: "I do not pretend to regret anything I shall leave in Hertfordshire, except your society, my dear friend. But we will hope at some future point to enjoy many returns of the delightful intercourse we have known, and in the meantime, while may lessen the pain of separation by very frequent and most unresolved correspondence, I depend on you for that." These high-flown expressions Elizabeth listened with all sensible distress, though the suddenness of their removal surprised her. Saw nothing in it rather than to really lament. Nothing was surprised, nothing to be supposed of their absence from Netherfield or prevent Mr. Bingley being there. And as to the loss of their society, she was persuaded that Jane must soon cease to regard it in the enjoyment of his. "It is unlucky," she said after a short pause, "that you should not be able to see your friends before they leave the country. But may we not hope that the period of future happiness to which Miss Bingley looks forward may arise earlier than she is aware, and that the delightful intercourse you have known as friends will be renewed with yet greater satisfaction as sisters? Mr. Bingley will not be destined in London by them." Charlotte decidedly said that none of the party will return into Netherfield this winter. I will read it to you. "When my brother left us yesterday, he imagined that the business which took him to London may conclude in 3 or 4 days. But as we are certain it cannot be so, and at the time convinced that when Charles gets to town, he will be in no hurry to leave it again, we have determined on following him thither, that he may not be obligated to spend his vacant hours in a comfortless hotel. Many of my acquaintances are already there for the winter. I wish I could hear that you, my dear friend, had any intention of making one in the crowd, but of that I despair. I sincerely hope your Christmas in Hertfordshire may abound in the trees which the season generally brings, and that your would be so numerous as to prevent your feeling the loss of the 3 of whom we shall deprive you. It is evidenced by this," added Jane, "that he comes back no more this winter. It is only evident that Miss Bingley does not mean he should." "Why will you think so? It must be his doing. He is his own master. But you do not know all. I will read you the passage which particularly hurts me. I will have no reserve from you. Mr. Darcy is impatient to see his sister, and to confess the truth, we are scarcely less eager to meet her again. I really do not think Georgiana Darcy as her equal for beauty, elegance, and accomplishments, and the affection she inspires in Louisa and myself is heightened into something still more interesting, for the hopes we dare entertain of her being hereafter our sister. I do not know whether I ever before mentioned to you my feelings on this subject. but I will not leave the country without confiding them. And I trust you will not esteem them unreasonable. My brother admires her greatly already. He will have frequent opportunities now upon seeing her on the most intimate footing. Her relations all wish the connection as much as his own. And a sister's partiality is not misleading me. I think when I call Charles most capable of engaging any woman's heart, with all these circumstances to favor an attachment and nothing to prevent it, am I wrong, my dearest Jane, to indulge the hope that in an event which will secure the happiness of so many? What do you think of this sentence, my dear Lizzie? Said Jane as she finished it. Is it not clear enough? Does it not expressively declare that Caroline neither expects nor wishes me to be her sister? That she is perfectly convinced of her brother's indifference, and that if she suspects the nature of my feelings for him, she means most kindly to put me on my guard? Can there be any other opinion on the subject? Yes, there can. Her mind is totally different. Will you hear it? Most willingly. You shall have it in a few words. Miss Bingley sees that her brother is in love with you, and wants him to marry Miss Darcy. She follows him to town in the hopes of keeping him there, and tries to persuade you that he does not care for you. Jane shook her head. Indeed, Jane, you ought to believe me. No one who ever seen you can doubt his affection. Miss Bingley, I am sure, cannot. She is not such a simpleton, but she have seen half as much love in Mr. Darcy for herself. She would have ordered her wedding clothes. But the case is this. We are not rich enough or bright enough for them. And she is the more anxious to get Miss Darcy for her brother, from the notion that there has been one intermarriage. She may have less trouble achieving a second, in which there is certainly some ingenuity, and I dare say it would succeed, if Miss de Bourgh were out of the way. But I dare say it would succeed. But my dearest Jane, you cannot seriously imagine that being Miss Bingley. But my dear Jane, you cannot seriously imagine that because Miss Bingley tells you her brother greatly admires Miss Darcy, he is the smallest degree less sensible of your merit than he would leave you on Tuesday, and that it would be in her power to persuade him that, instead of being in love with you, he is very much in love with her friend. If we thought alike of Miss Bingley, replied Jane, your representation of all this might make me quite easy, but I know the foundation is unjust. Caroline is incapable of willfully deceiving anyone, and all that I can hope is, in this case, that she is deceived herself. That is right. You could not have started a more happy idea, since you will not take comfort in mine. Believe her to be deceived by all means. You have now done your duty by her, and must fret no longer. But my dear sister, can I be happy, even supposing the best, in accepting a man whose sisters and friends are all wishing him to marry elsewhere? You must decide for yourself, said Elizabeth, and if, upon mature deliberation, you find that the misery of obliging his two sisters are more than equivalent to the happiness of being his wife, I advise you by all means to refuse him. How can you talk so? Jane, faintly smiling. You must know that though I should be exceedingly grieved by the disprobation, I could not hesitate. If I did not think you would, and that being the case, I cannot consider your situation with much compassion. But if he returns no more this winter, my choice will never be required. 1,000 things may arise in 6 months. The idea of his returning no more, Elizabeth treated with the utmost contempt. It appeared to her merely the suggestion of Caroline's interested wishes, and that she could not for a moment suppose that those wishes, however openly or artificially spoken, could influence a young man so totally independent of everyone. She represented to her sister as forcibly as possible what she felt on the subject, and had soon the pleasure of seeing its beautiful effects. Jane's temper was not desponding, and she was gradually led to hope. But the difference of affection sometimes overcame the hope that Miss Bingley would return to Netherfield and answer every wish of her heart. They agreed that Miss Bennet should only hear of the departure of the family without being alarmed on the score of the gentleman's conduct. But even this partial communication gave her a great deal of concern, and she bewailed it exceedingly unlucky that the ladies should happen to go away just as they were all getting so intimate together. After lamenting it, however, at some length, they had the consolation of thinking that Mr. Bingley would soon draw again and soon dining at Longbourn. And the conclusion of all was the comfortable declaration that, though he had been invited only to a family dinner, he would take care of having 2 full courses. So that was the end of chapter 21. I know I said I wanted to finish the volume, and I only have like 10 more pages to go, but my voice is really tired. So I guess I'll end it here. Thank you all so much for being here today. I'm really sorry for being gone for so long, but I'm really glad you're here. Next stream we'll be finishing the first volume, and we'll be moving on to volume 2 of the story. We are almost halfway done. It's getting hot where I live because summer is finally hitting us, and I can't wait for to buy some ice cream and just enjoy outside. I love winter. I love drinking hot chocolate, but there's something nice about just buying some ice cream and just enjoying the nice weather. Anyways, thank you all so much for being here, and I hope you have a wonderful day, a lovely night, and if you're dreaming, peaceful dreams. Goodbye!